Welcome everybody. I'm Brenda Cameron. I'm a personal development consultant and a professional speaker. Today I'd like to share with you my story, Bedbound to Everest. And you're probably already wondering, well, who is this Brenda Cameron? What's she all about? What does she do? Well, I'm about to tell you. Here I am, about to embark on a wing walk at Headcorn. This was a birthday present for my brother and sister. It was for my 70th birthday. And for some reason, they obviously have the impression I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie. I was definitely apprehensive about this flight. I felt a bit better when the instructor said to me, if I was enjoying myself, I just needed to put my thumbs up while I was up there. If I wasn't, I could put my thumbs down and they would bring me down. Felt slightly better about that. We taxied along the runway and it was great. I was in Titanic pose. My family were cheering and whooping and it was all very exhilarating, and I thought, oh, it's going to be good. As we left the ground, that was good. That felt good because I really enjoy takeoff on any aeroplane. However, by the time we were 500 feet up in the air and I was bolted to the wings of this vintage aircraft, the force of the atmosphere was so powerful that my face was frozen, my body was frozen, I couldn't lift my arms. The force against me was phenomenal and I felt petrified. I think I kind of dissociated from my body. I kind of felt like the aircraft was looping the loop, and although I did think I was going to put my thumbs down at one stage, I kind of had a vision of my eldest brother Donald, who died a couple of years before, and he was my hero. He was a very brave man. And I thought to myself, oh, am I going to leave this world being a wimp, or am I going to leave this world kicking and screaming? I decided that I would leave the world kicking and screaming, and I stayed up for the whole flight. Once we landed, I have to say it was the most amazing trip. I'm just going to remove my picture so you can see that clearly. It was the most amazing trip and the most amazing adventure. However, I'm not going to do it again. The reason I'm showing you these slides is because my life wasn't really always this way, you see. I'd like to take you back with me to the beginning of 1999, and at this stage I was at the peak of my corporate career. I had an executive role in a company who were the eyes and the ears of the media. My life was busy, exciting, and I thought successful. I was working 80+ hours a week, travelling hundreds of miles up and down the motorway, staying away from home in smart hotels, responsible for a couple of thousand staff. Yeah, I kind of thought I'd made it. Fast forward to the end of that year, November 1999. I was bedbound. I was unable to pick up a car or have a conversation. My body was engulfed in a fatigue and a tiredness that is even indescribable to me today. I was unable to watch the television, read a book, listen to the radio. I'd become light and sound phobic, and what that meant was it was as if somebody had removed the outside layer of skin and that my flesh was open to the elements and I was sensitive to everything in the world. I couldn't have sunlight shining on me. It hurt, and the slightest noise was like a pneumatic drill going off in my head. It took the medical profession 3 months to diagnose me with the chronic illness known as ME, and they told me there is no cure. You're just going to have to learn to live with this illness. And I did for 8 long years. My immune system had all but shut down, and I could not interact with the outside world in any way. Cleaning my teeth was akin to climbing Mount Everest. Having a wash was out of the question. Too tired often to eat or to sleep. I missed out on my granddaughters growing up. Birthdays, Christmases, anniversaries, holidays, as I just lay there. Day after day, week after week, month after month, and the months turned into years. My seemingly busy, exciting, successful life had turned into what felt like a living death for me. I became isolated and depressed, and I now know that people with these kind of illnesses that the medical profession know very little about actually end their lives. Fortunately, I never got to that stage. I had amazing friends and family around me who trawled the internet for cures, and I tried them all. Conventional medicine gave me antidepressants. I saw a psychiatrist who said I was sane. I had cognitive behavior therapy, mindfulness meditation, metamorphic treatment. I did reflexology, Reiki, acupuncture, shiatsu massage, Chinese medicine, spiritualist healing. I even had my house feng shuied, and it would appear that the medical profession were right, that there actually was no cure for this terrible illness. Do you know what though? I never gave up hope. And early in 2007, a very dear friend sent me this newspaper clipping. It was about Esther Ranson's daughter, Emily. Now, Emily had the same illness as me, Emmy, and she'd been in a wheelchair for 15 years. She'd been on this training course that taught her how her mind and body could speak to each other. She was recovered, she was well. Now, Esther had become the figurehead for the Emmy Society, and she'd given this interview to the Mail, and I trusted Esther. However, I'd no idea how on earth I would ever get to London, or let alone on a training course for 3 days. I haven't got enough time to explain to you how my family managed to get that sorted. However, it took 6 months, and we did. Stayed at my son's the night before, and I rested in his car all the way up. I couldn't have had a conversation or spoken to him. He got me to that clinic at 9 o'clock on the 31st of July 2007. And at 1 o'clock that day, I left that clinic, and I have to say I don't remember in my whole life that I'd ever seen the sun shine so brightly. My son's car literally looked iridescent blue. And this terrible fatigue and fog that my whole head and mind and brain had been caught up in for 8 years seemed to have disappeared. I sat in the car and talked to my son all the way home for 1 hour. I'd never had a conversation for 1 hour in all the years I'd been unwell, in 8 years. And I'd learned stuff and techniques at the class that I had to keep practicing over and over in my mind. However, I had a conversation with my son for an hour, and when I got back to his house, my granddaughters Emily and Georgia, who didn't really know me well, they said, "Nanny, are you going to your room for a rest?" Because I had a bed at everybody's house, my 2 sons, my sister, my brother, where I would go and they would look after me. "No," said Nanny, "would you like to come to the park?" Because I'd been told at the training course, you have to go home and do something you never dreamt you could. Never dreamt you could. And that's what I did. I said to Emily and Georgia, "Would you like to come to the park?" They were astonished. We walked 20 minutes to the park, and when we got there, I didn't push them on the swing slide and roundabout. I got on the swing slide and roundabout with them. We stayed there for 1 hour and then we walked home 20 minutes. It was like magic. In hours, my life was transformed. I went back on that course for 2 further days. 5 weeks after attending that training course, I was driving around Europe with my neighbour. We went to Venice. We were driving to Venice. We just packed a bag each, jumped in the car, left our village with the roof down to the strains of the song "Ain't No Stopping Us Now." And we drove through France, Switzerland, Germany, Austria, down into Italy. We sped around the Monte Carlo racetrack circuit, and as we drove down the Amalfi Coast, we were like kids let loose in a sweet shop. All my birthdays, Christmases, anniversaries, holidays were rolled into one. I was having the time of our life. We had the roof down, we were singing at the tops of our voices. People were tooting at us from cars, they were waving. I think people could see that something magical and something really special was going on here. That same year, I skied. I rode pillion on the Winter Olympics bobsleigh run. I don't recommend that. The G-force knocked me unconscious and I felt so ill for a couple of days afterwards. I went on to Segway race with my eldest granddaughter, floating on a bar of Cadbury's chocolate with my youngest granddaughter, indoor skydiving, walking over the top of the O2 Arena. And I had to admit, I'm a fairly intelligent person, but I really had to admit that I had easily, rapidly and permanently recovered from 8 years of chronic illness. And some people started to say to me, "Oh, were you ever ill?" Well, I have to say, I would not wish that terrible illness on my worst enemy. But I started to question myself, why didn't I know about this training course before? Why don't the medical profession know about it? Why don't other people know about it? And I thought it was magic, and I thought, do you know what, I need to go and find out how this stuff works. I did. I embarked on the training course with never a thought about qualifying and practicing myself. After day 1 of the course, I was literally hooked. This stuff was fascinating, and I obviously went on and qualified and now work with other people to help them transform their lives just as I have. And I know you're going to be asking, oh, how does it work? What is it? Right. It's not a therapy, a treatment, or a cure. It is a training course. It's a training course that teaches you that you have the most phenomenal pharmacy in the world between your ears. You just have to learn how to use it. And that is exactly what I did. And I think I can only liken it to the placebo. Now, I'm sure you've all heard of the placebo. And I'm sure you know that one of the most magical things our body does is it treats the sugar pill as if it's a powerful medicine. Well, this training course does exactly that. It teaches you how to harness that thing that allows you to believe that you can recover. And it taught me to recover from 8 years of chronic illness to now enjoying a life of phenomenal health and wellness. And for me, how I managed to do this was I had to change what I believed about the medical profession, because they told me there was no cure. So I had to completely ignore that, had to change what I believed about the medical profession. And I did all this by changing my language, how I spoke, what I exposed myself to, and also about my posture. So I learned how to access this amazing pharmacy in my brain, in my mind. because you have, it's like an apothecary shop in your mind, and I learned how to keep going in and out and getting different stuff off of the shelf so that I could experience a life of health, phenomenal energy and happiness. So one of the first things I learned was that when you're exposed to emotive negative language, such as you can see in these headlines, Secrets of the Doomed Jet Kids, Madman in the Cockpit, the Jilted Pilot, that kind of language creates an emotion in you, a negative emotion. And that negative emotion has an effect on your feelings and your immune system, your health. So in order to take one of those jars off of the apothecary shelf, I learned to change my language. So not only did I stop listening to the news on the TV and stop buying these kind of newspapers, but I also had to be careful about the language I was using with myself, such as, oh, I don't feel well, I feel ill. I had to be saying things like, I feel amazing, I feel fit, I feel energetic. I had to be around very positive language, because our language has an effect on our health and our well-being. And by changing our language, we are accessing that pharmacy between our ears. Using positive language triggers positive chemistry and boosts your immune system. It's as simple as that. This stuff is quite simple. You just have to know about it. The next thing I learned about was my posture was even more powerful than anything I could say, and that when I was in the chronic illness posture, that was kind of sending a message to my mind and my body, you feel ill. To explain that further and the simplicity of it, I have a straw here. Now, if I was in the room with you, I would be giving you all a straw. However, for now, I'm going to demonstrate. I take this straw and put it in my mouth. And as I do, the sides of my mouth turn up, just as they would if I was smiling. So whenever you put the straw in your mouth, you're actually sending a message to your mind and your body, I feel happy. This is what I was talking about, the mind and body talking to each other. This is another jar off the apothecary's shelf, another way of accessing the pharmacy in the brain. Consistently putting a straw or a pencil in your mouth so the sides of your mouth turn up, and practicing that consistently sends a message to your mind and your body, I feel happy, boosting your immune system. Can you imagine the power then of taking up a posture like this? We call this a power pose. When you take up this kind of posture, shoulders back, head up, chin up, hands on hips, you not only feel powerful, look powerful, but you're actually sending a message to your mind and body, I feel powerful, I feel energetic. You're taking another apothecary jar down from the shelf, you're accessing the pharmacy in your brain and sending a message to your mind and body, I feel powerful, I feel energetic. Now, our parents knew this when they would tell us to sit up straight. The army, when they get the soldiers to march, put their shoulders back, keep their posture up. All of those things, apart from improving self-esteem, they access the pharmacy in your mind to say, I feel well, I feel healthy, I feel powerful. So you have three simple things there that you can use to access the pharmacy in your brain. And for me, I have continued to learn how to access this pharmacy in my brain. I've travelled the world attending seminars, training courses. As you can see here, one of those training courses, I climbed to the top of a telegraph pole. I was all dressed appropriately for it, jumping off the top of a telegraph pole just to change my beliefs around what I could do. And in doing that, I was sending a message to my mind and body, accessing the pharmacy in my brain. I'm fit, I'm well, I'm healthy. And in the corner here, you can actually see a wheelbarrow full of hot coals. Now, I learned how to walk across those hot coals time and time and time again, sending a message. I didn't burn my feet, sending a message to my mind and body. You know, you think that you're going to burn your feet, but you're not. Changing my beliefs around what's possible for me and accessing the pharmacy in my brain again about what's possible for me, boosting my immune system. And at the bottom here, you can see I'm part of a team, part of the firewalking team that helped hundreds of other people walk across hot coals, changing their beliefs around what was possible for them. And nowadays, I feel anything is possible for me. Here I am with my son running, and as you can see there are three generations of us. My son, my granddaughter and me at the park run just a few weeks ago. And one of my favourites here, this is me having hiked, this was last year, 10,000 feet to the Tiger's Nest Monastery in Bhutan. Now the Tiger's Nest Monastery literally hangs off a cliff 10,000 feet above sea level in the Himalayas. I hiked all the way there, meditated in one of the rooms in the Tiger's Nest Monastery and hiked all the way back. I believe there is nothing that I can't do now, and you would probably imagine that my talk, Bedbound to Everest, is possibly about me hiking to the Tiger's Nest Monastery, or it's possibly about me recovering from 8 years of chronic illness, or possibly about me doing a wing walk, or walking on the hot coals, or jumping off the top of a telegraph pole. Well, I have to tell you, all of those things were easy in comparison to this last thing I'd like to talk to you about, which I believe is my bedbound to Everest. Here's my parents, Emily Cameron and Hugh Ewan Cameron, known as Jock. Now, my parents fought on the front line in World War II, and I'm sure you'll identify with this. I'm sure your parents may have done too. My mum was in the ATS and she was loading the guns in Belgium when things got bad. My dad was in Burma with the Cameronian Highlanders. He got shot and was taken prisoner by the Japanese. When my mum and dad returned from the war, very much in love, they got married. I believe they were both suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, which was unheard of in those days. And incidentally, well, not incidentally, importantly actually, my dad's mum, my paternal grandmother, committed suicide when my dad was a little boy. My mum and dad needed help when they got back from the war. It wasn't available for them. Life was really tough. My mum had 3 children in quick succession, and my mum and us siblings bore the brunt of all that happened to my dad in that Japanese prisoner of war camp. My mum had a nervous breakdown, and we as children, and my mum included, we turned into the prisoners of that Japanese prisoner of war camp, and my dad was the jailer. Consequently, as children, we all grew up in a culture of fear, defense, and survival, as you would if you were a prisoner. I carried that on into adulthood. living in survival and fear all your life is very bad for your immune system, and eventually mine broke down. All the work and all the training that I've done has taught me how to step out of that culture of fear, how to change my perception of life from that of fear, survival and defense, and learn how to see life from a place of love, safety and trust. And for me, all of this preceded my illness and was the cause of my illness. So my bedbound to Everest has been changing my life from one of fear, survival and defense into one of love, trust and safety. And I am a survivor. I have survived. I'm not just a survivor. You know, I actually live my life. I blaze a trail through life. And by the time I leave this world, which is going to be a long, long, long time from now, I intend to leave no stone unturned, nothing unsaid, nothing undone. And the stories that I tell come from all of the wisdom, the knowledge and the learning that I've acquired over these years. And I share this with other people so that they can achieve their Everest regardless of their age or their current circumstances. Thank you so much for listening to my talk. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm going to leave some details at the end of my talk where if you would like to contact me and ask me any questions, I will be delighted to answer them. As I said, I do now weave all my experiences and knowledge and wisdom into talks, training courses, workshops, one-to-one coaching, mentoring and e-consultations, which means I work online remotely. And if you've enjoyed my talk, I'd love it if you let me know if you would like to hear another one of my talks. An Unlikely Friendship, which tells the story of myself and my neighbour as we recovered from chronic illness together and travelled the world. It's a hilarious account of the most unlikely, beautiful friendship. The Art of Aging is a talk all about how you can access that pharmacy in your brain and flourish as you age. Fashionable Fashionistas talks about how when you find a passion in life, as this particular group of ladies do, how having a passion for life is very good for your immune system and your health. And then how to set and achieve goals the simple way, and they can be any sorts of goals. They don't have to be massive goals, but maybe goals that you have wanted to achieve all your life and still haven't. And then finally, optimum life-work balance, which is usually a talk that I deliver to companies. I want to thank you once again for being here and joining me, listening to my talk, and I'm going to leave you with my details. Please don't hesitate to contact me and ask me any questions. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you. Goodbye.